At this point, you should have a couple models made out of straws. So here's just two models that I have that are nothing extraordinary at the moment, but it's just something to work with to put, to apply a skin to. An Elmer's glue adhesive, they both mix with water. The Elmer's glue, I found, is kind of nice because it is transparent and it shows the inner structure of the form. So for something like this, I'm curious to see what the inner structure would look like as a transparent skin. I think that would be kind of interesting. I'd ask you to get a sheet of plastic, or in this case, I have this roll of paper laying around, and I'm using this to protect my table that I'm working on and to protect around me, because the glue mixture is really messy and it flicks all over the place. I don't even have a smock or anything to wear with me now, but I recommend wearing clothes that you don't care too much about, work clothes, or you can put on a smock or something like that. The rubber gloves, however, are for the Elmer's glue. And you use water. The material you're gonna need is tracing paper. I have a few sheets pulled out. This is like 4 or 5 sheets, and I'm gonna cut them up in strips. And these are examples from before. I have my water, I have my models. I think I have everything I need. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna cut these into strips. So I recommend maybe 1 inch wide or so. Slightly more than 1 inch, 1.5 inches. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can just see I'm just kind of cutting just like so. That one's a little thinner. This one's gonna be a little thicker. And I also recommend, see how long these are? I recommend cutting a couple strips in half. So you have long ones and short ones. So I have a pile of short ones, and I'm gonna give myself one more cut of strips here. And I have a pile of the long ones. The other thing when I was making this and I didn't do is, as you're working, it's nice to be able to snip and cut so you can fold around things. If that's the case and your hands are gluey from this, it's nice to have a pair of scissors that you don't care about and you can just grab, because it does get pretty messy. Another little trick too, these bowls, these are just disposable bowls, paper bowls, and they can serve as something you can hold your piece with as you're working it to turn it. And they also can help. They're for mixing thin. So I'm just kind of putting some glue in here. And I don't know, made about that much. And I'm gonna put a little, I believe it's 1-to-1 ratio. I'm gonna put a little water in here, about the same amount. And in this case, I'm just gonna use my finger to mix it. And it's a really kind of watery mixture. And if you feel it's too watery, you can try a little more glue. But again, that's why we're doing this. So you understand the viscosity, which is the thickness of the liquid needed for whatever you're gonna do. Instead of starting on your main sculpture, you have to kind of go through some of this. I can add a little bit more glue. You'd be surprised, that little bit of water and that little bit of glue, because it's probably like that thick on the bottom, it's really thin. Goes a long way, goes a real long way. So this is the guy I was really curious about, to see what the understructure, it's like an egg shape. If you're wondering how I made this, all I did was the ellipses around the sides, I just connected because it's the bendy straws, I just connected them around, I didn't glue them, and then I just glued these vertical pieces between them, and it seemed to help. All right. Again, this is super same idea. You're going to squeegee it, and then you're going to lay it on top. And this is such a weird form that I'm trying to have it come up, wrap around so it connects to itself. And lay on top of the form. So this is going to take a little trial and error, and possibly because this design is so, or it constantly turns, I might have to use smaller strips. I don't know. It's all an experiment. You can kind of see I'm just laying it on top and letting it, so this little part comes up. You could grab your scissors and cut it right here. I don't want to do that because my handles are clean. Kind of finding myself putting it over the middle parts. I might use the small guys. And you want to make sure that you get glue on both sides. And I might use these small ones to kind of fill the space between. Yeah, that seems to work. So I think it's probably better to use smaller pieces, like some big pieces just to cover some area, and then use the smaller pieces to hitchhike on top of the bigger pieces. There we go. So you learn as you go, just like I'm doing live with a video. So you can kind of see that I covered that one spot, and as I finish this, it might make this interesting form. Who knows? See what happens. Now in terms of scale, remember this is a model. I expect your scale of your design to be bigger for the final piece, but the models are just fine. You're just getting used to the process and mediums. If you find that you can only do one side and you want to have it dry, that's fine. Just make sure you can always cut it if you have to, but make sure the pieces are not sticking out. But I guess you could cut it off if a piece does stick out later on. For example, you could let this dry and then you could put this down and then finish the tops. But in this case, I'm just going to drag it as far as I can and see what happens. How am I doing on time? 7 minutes? I kind of like the glue mixture, to be honest. But I'm also unsure about this little rainbow bright understructure that's here. I just don't know if it's going to undermine the design in the end. If it was all one color, then you would just think about it as being the structure. But since it's multicolored, maybe it interferes or distracts from, you start to think about the colors and not the design. So it could interfere with the form. Again, I'm not worried about that right now. So you can also see I'm going across in some areas. So I might go this way and then I go this way. This helps build it up. Gives it more structure. So that's kind of cool. it's starting to work out. I do like showing the interior structure. It would even show here, the opaque one. So I'm still undecided about which direction I would go into. So you can kind of see, I'm just kind of working on this one area and I'm building. And then after that, I'll probably just move to the next area and build and just try to work my way around until it's finished. Or if it's just too impossible, because once you turn this way, some flaps like this guy's gonna wanna flap down and you're gonna get frustrated and you're gonna constantly like stroke it to keep it patted down, but that's part of it. Get a big one here. So again, this glue mixture is going pretty far. There we go, that's a good one. Yeah, there's some problem areas here where it just won't go down, so I would try to snip that or cut it in some way. And you might find that once you understand the process, like, you know what, it's just easier for me to do a little at a time and I can just keep adding to it, and then my craftsmanship is much better. And again, that's why we're making models, so you can kind of figure out your process. Everybody has their own. You can kind of see it's starting to form now. I'm starting to get there. So I will stop the video. A majority of this with the skin. I haven't covered the bottoms or the tops, but I think it just might be a little bit too cumbersome to handle. And for right now, I think I'm just gonna leave it as is, let it dry, and then come back to it later. And right now I'm just kind of standing it up inside of a bowl, because glue will drip off. And I'm leaning it against something I had around, which was this thing here, and that way it can just lean down. Now you might want to check on it a little bit later so it doesn't stick to the cardboard of this guy, and maybe check on it down here so it doesn't stick to the bowl. But you do want it to dry in a nice spot, and then after this you can come back to it, find areas that are open spaces and whatnot, and just finish it. But so far I'm pretty happy with the result. I do like the understructure being shown there. So until next time.